After years of silent overwork, Caleb Foster thought exhaustion was just the price of survival. But one night, the most powerful woman in his company appeared in his kitchen, and exposed a truth that would change his life, his family, and an entire system. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. Caleb Foster was 29, but the city had aged him faster than birthdays ever could. Chicago looked rich from the outside, glass towers like polished mirrors, restaurant windows glowing warm, taxis sliding through wet streets, but Caleb saw the other side of it, the late shifts, the endless, just one more hour, the kind of tired that settled in your bones and didn't leave. He climbed the stairs to his small apartment with his lunch bag hanging from his wrist like an anchor. His daughter, Lily, 7 years old and stubbornly hopeful, was supposed to be asleep at Mrs. Alvarez's place downstairs. Caleb had promised Lily he'd be home before bedtime. He'd promised that last week too. He unlocked the door, expecting darkness. Instead, he heard running water. Caleb froze, then moved forward quietly. The kitchen light was on. And in the glow stood a woman with sleeves rolled up, washing his dishes like she belonged there. Elena Hart. The CEO of Hart Industries, his employer, the company that owned half the skyline and most of his waking hours. She didn't look like the woman from magazine covers. No suit. No assistants. Just a slim, blonde woman in a plain sweater, hair tied back, her face tired enough to be real. "You shouldn't be here," Caleb said, voice flat. "I know." Elena turned off the faucet. "I'm sorry. I needed to talk to you somewhere private." Caleb's gaze flicked to the tote bag on the chair. A thick manila folder sat on the table like a brick. "If this is about productivity," Caleb started. "It's about theft," Elena said. "And about what it's done to you." She slid the folder toward him. Caleb opened it and immediately felt his stomach sink. Payroll sheets. Time logs. 3 names listed under his shift team, employees he'd never met. "I know everyone on my floor," Caleb whispered. "You know the real ones," Elena said. "Those 3 don't exist." The room seemed to tilt. Caleb thought of the overtime he'd covered because they were short-staffed. The weekends he'd missed. The promotion that never came because his manager kept finding new reasons to call him not ready. "Mark Grayson," Caleb said, almost without meaning to. Elena nodded. "Your department manager." Caleb shut the folder slowly, rage warming under his ribs. "Why are you telling me this now?" Elena hesitated, as if choosing between truth and safety. "Because I found it, and because someone inside the company is deleting complaint trails. This can't go through HR. It has to be clean." Clean. The word sounded strange in a dirty world. Before Caleb could speak again, the front door clicked. Small footsteps padded down the hall. "Daddy?" Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, clutching her stuffed fox. Elena's face went pale, not from being caught, but from something deeper, like Lily's presence raised the stakes. Caleb's voice tightened. "Lily, you're supposed to be downstairs." "I wanted my bed," Lily mumbled. Then she looked straight at Elena and asked the question that made Caleb's pulse spike. "Are you here because Daddy's in trouble?" Lily climbed into her chair and set her stuffed fox on the table like it was listening too. She blinked at Elena, unafraid, and studied her face. "You look sad," Lily said matter-of-factly. Elena crouched to Lily's level, her composure cracking for a second. "I am," she admitted quietly. Caleb didn't like how quickly Lily made Elena human. Caleb had survived by keeping Hart Industries faceless, an idea, a machine, something you couldn't argue with. But here the machine was kneeling in his kitchen, looking at his daughter like she didn't know what to do with tenderness. Lily swung her feet. "Daddy is sad too. He tries not to be. But he falls asleep when he reads." And he says he'll come home early but then he doesn't. And sometimes he forgets to eat. Caleb's throat tightened. He'd told himself Lily didn't notice. Kids noticed everything. Elena stood slowly and opened another packet from the folder. This is why, she said, sliding papers toward Caleb. Performance reviews. 2 columns, original metrics and submitted metrics. Caleb stared. The original data showed him as one of the best workers in his unit. The submitted version made him look unreliable, difficult, not leadership material. He changed them, Caleb said, voice rough. Elena nodded. To keep you where you are. Because if you move up, he loses control. Lily frowned at the pages like they offended her. That's lying. Yes, Elena said. And the company let it happen. Caleb's anger sharpened. So you'll fire him and make a speech? Elena's gaze dropped for a moment, shame, grief, something older. If I fire him tonight, he disappears. He's not alone. And he's done this before. Caleb's spine stiffened. Before? Elena swallowed. Someone tried to expose this kind of fraud 6 years ago. He collected evidence. He pushed too hard. Caleb felt cold creep up his arms. What happened? Elena's voice went smaller. He died. Lily's eyes widened. Died? Officially an accident, Elena said gently, glancing at Lily, regretting the word. Then she looked back at Caleb. Unofficially, the company buried him. Caleb's jaw clenched. Who was he? Elena took a breath that shook. His name was Adrian Pike. He was my brother. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Caleb stared at Elena, trying to fit grief into the shape of a CEO. His phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number, stop digging. Caleb's blood went cold. Elena stared at the screen, and fear washed over her face like she'd been punched. He knows, she whispered. Lily looked between them. Daddy? Caleb forced a smile for Lily's sake, but his eyes stayed on Elena. How does he know? Elena's voice was barely audible. Because I tried to access records earlier today. Someone flagged it. Someone told him. A second message arrived, shorter. We're watching. And for the first time, Caleb understood, this wasn't just wage theft. It was a system that protected itself. After Lily fell asleep, medicine taken, stuffed fox tucked under her arm, Caleb shut the kitchen door like it could keep the danger out. Elena sat at his table, hands wrapped around a mug of cheap coffee, staring into it as if the dark surface held answers. You said your brother died, Caleb said. Because he tried to expose this. Elena nodded slowly. My father was CEO then. Adrian called the company corrupt. My father called Adrian reckless. They stopped speaking. Her voice tightened. 2 months later Adrian fell from a platform at a warehouse. Safety reports were altered after the fact. His complaints disappeared. People who supported him got destroyed in reviews or transferred. Caleb's anger moved in strange directions. He wanted someone to blame. The CEO in his kitchen was the easiest target, except she looked like someone who had been blaming herself for years. And Mark Grayson was involved? Caleb asked. Elena's eyes hardened. He was a junior manager then. He learned what power looked like. He learned who got rewarded. Caleb paced, fingers flexing. Why me? Elena hesitated, then pulled out a single sheet from the folder, something sealed and stamped. Caleb's name. A confidential settlement. A gap in his employment history. His stomach sank. You looked me up, Caleb said, voice sharp. I had to, Elena replied. Because Mark didn't choose you randomly. Caleb stopped pacing. I don't want to talk about Detroit. Elena's gaze held his. You reported wage theft there. You tried to do the right thing. You got silenced with an NDA. The old memory hit like a smell you can't shake, a windowless office, a severance check slid across a desk, a friendly voice saying, "You've got a baby at home, right? Don't ruin your life over this." I wasn't brave, Caleb muttered. You were honest, Elena said. And Mark saw that file. He recognized the pattern. He knew you'd already learned how expensive truth can be. Caleb's phone buzzed again. A photo loaded. Lily. Leaving school. A timestamp. A distant street corner. Caleb's body went cold, then hot. He couldn't breathe for a second. Another message followed. Next time won't be a photo. Elena stood abruptly, face pale. No. No, no. Caleb's hands shook. He looked toward Lily's room, listening for her breathing as if he could protect her with hearing alone. We call the police, Caleb said. Elena's voice was urgent. Not yet. If we go now, Mark vanishes, the board buries it, and the system survives. We need the full pipeline, the shell vendors, the approving executives, the cover-ups. We need evidence that can't be spun. Caleb stared at Elena, rage and fear fighting inside him. My kid isn't a chess piece. She isn't, Elena said, voice cracking. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm terrified. Caleb swallowed hard. Then we do it clean. No dirty tricks. No lies. Elena nodded once, like taking an oath. Clean. Honest. And fast. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere across the city, and Caleb realized, Mark Grayson didn't just steal money. He collected leverage. The next morning, Hart Industries woke up to panic disguised as professionalism. Elena announced an immediate operational audit, temporary interviews, staffing reconciliations, vendor verification. The building buzzed like a hive under threat. Mark Grayson didn't panic. That was the scariest part. He walked the floor smiling, reassuring people, acting offended on behalf of his team. But Caleb watched his eyes, always scanning, always calculating exits. Mark cornered Caleb near the break room, voice warm enough to fool anyone listening. Foster, he said. How's your daughter? Caleb's stomach tightened. She's fine. Mark smiled wider. Good. Kids need stability. Don't do anything unstable. Caleb wanted to hit him. Instead, he forced his voice calm. What do you want? Mark leaned in, and his tone turned intimate and cruel. I want you to remember what happened in Detroit. You spoke up once. Look how that ended. Caleb's hands clenched. You don't own me. Mark's smile didn't move. No. But I own the story people believe about you. That night, Elena came to Caleb's apartment again, this time with two quiet security professionals waiting outside the building. He's moving money, Elena said immediately, setting her laptop on the table. Under pressure. He's trying to drain accounts before we freeze them. On the screen, transfers flickered, rushed invoices, shell vendors, rapid routing through consultancy accounts. Caleb recorded everything, time-stamping each move. Then Elena's phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't answer. Caleb did. Mark's voice came through, smooth as oil. Caleb. Tell Ms. Hart she's making a mistake. Elena leaned close, voice sharp. Mark. You threatened a child. Mark chuckled softly. I didn't threaten. I reminded. Your world is fragile. Don't pretend it isn't. The line went dead. Elena exhaled, hands shaking. Tomorrow, she said, we bring him into a room with third-party investigators. He'll try to spin. He'll try to frame you. But if we keep it clean, he can't. Caleb looked toward Lily's room. And if he strikes first? Elena's eyes held his. Then we still do the right thing. That's the only win that lasts. Caleb nodded, but in his gut, he felt the truth, the trap was closing. And hunted men don't always run quietly. The conference room on the top floor was plain, no luxury, no intimidation. Elena wanted it that way. Truth didn't need marble. Third-party investigators sat with laptops open. Security stood by the door. Caleb sat at the end of the table, hands steady only because Lily's face lived in his mind like a vow. Mark Grayson walked in smiling. "Miss Hart," he said pleasantly. "You wanted to see me?" Elena slid a stack of documents across the table. "Explain these ghost employees." Mark barely glanced down. "Contingency staffing. Paperwork lag." An investigator spoke calmly. "No hiring records exist. Salaries were paid. Funds routed through shell vendors." Mark shrugged. "Administrative error." Elena's voice turned colder. "Explain Caleb Foster's altered performance reviews." Mark's eyes flicked, just once, then returned to calm. "Performance is subjective." Elena nodded to the investigator. A screen turned toward Mark. "Access logs. Time stamps. Mark's credentials editing the reviews." Silence finally arrived. Mark's smile thinned. "This is personal for you," he said, pivoting. "Your brother. Your feelings. You're emotional." "Yes," Elena said evenly. "And that doesn't make it wrong." Caleb spoke, voice low. "You stole time from my daughter." Mark looked at Caleb with something like pity. "Time is stolen by life, Foster. Don't blame me for choices you made." Caleb's hands clenched, but he didn't raise his voice. "I chose to work. You chose to lie." Elena slid one final page forward, the vendor trail leading to a board member's private consulting firm. That was the moment Mark's confidence cracked. He wasn't cornered by Elena anymore, he was cornered by the people above him. "You shouldn't have gone that far," Mark whispered. Elena's eyes were steady. "You shouldn't have touched a child." Security stepped in. Mark stood, jaw tight, hatred flashing. For a second it looked like he might lash out, like the mask might drop completely. Instead, he straightened his tie and let them escort him out, leaning just enough toward Caleb to murmur, "Truth always costs." Weeks later, the fallout hit publicly. Mark was arrested. 2 board members resigned. Hart Industries faced lawsuits and investigations. Elena held a press conference and didn't hide behind corporate language. "We failed," she said. "We rewarded silence. We punished honesty. That ends now." She launched reforms, external oversight, anonymous reporting, restitution, limits on forced overtime. Caleb got a promotion, but more importantly, he got his evenings back. Dinner became a real thing again. Bedtime stories got finished. Lily started drawing butterflies with brighter colors, as if the world had stopped pressing on her chest. Months later, Lily sat at the kitchen table with crayons spread out, Elena beside her helping color a crooked-winged butterfly. Lily looked up. "Are you gonna stay?" Elena froze, not because she didn't want to, but because she suddenly cared enough to be afraid. Caleb watched her, this woman who could face a boardroom without blinking, trembling at a child's hope. "You don't have to be perfect," Caleb said gently. "Just honest." Elena's eyes filled. She nodded once. "Then yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." Lily smiled like it was simple. And Caleb understood the ending wasn't about winning against Mark Grayson. It was about refusing to become him. Kindness rebuilt a man. Honesty rebuilt a CEO. And together, in one small kitchen, they rebuilt a family. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.